Muqrid is the lender. Muqtarid is the borrower. Alright? And those will be from Arkan al-Aqd, Aqd al-Dayn, Aqd al-Qard. So, for al-Muqtarid, it's mubah. For the borrower, it's mubah. Permissible for him to borrow. Permissible for him to ask for money, to borrow. Some of the ulama went to say it's makruh. It's not recommended. Unless there is a necessity. And it's imperative that he gets that money. But in general, if something that he can get through with without borrowing, they said it's makruh. Why is that? Why is it makruh to borrow money? Yeah.
Because the Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to refuse to ask help from each other.
Okay.
And that gift is better than the hand that received.
Alright, but here you're talking about loans. You're taking, but you're gonna give back. Not exactly as if you ask. All these hadith you guys mentioning maybe can be somehow connected, but in general those things that for beggars, a person who's asking for help, not necessarily beggars, but that's part of it. Someone who's in need. He's taking money because he needs to survive, not borrowing money because there's something going on in his life. Alright? Usually, it's because there's a lot of warning of borrowing money with the wrong intention. Because a lot of people borrow and they don't pay back. And unfortunately, this is the main reason that Muslims don't give qard hasan anymore. He doesn't want to give a loan. He doesn't want to lend you money for the sake of Allah. Why? Because the majority have messed it up for the minor, for the people in need. Because there are a lot of Muslims out there who wants to live with other people's money. They have money, they want to save it, they want to keep it, they want to hide it. And he lives day to day by borrowing money from people. And that is something you see obvious in general. You find the person has enough money, for example, to pay for his bedroom, if we're going to go back to the bedroom, but because of the advertisement and because of the, he doesn't want to, you know, why are you going to freeze $2,000, you know, one shot and pay the bedroom? I'll pay it and I can use the $2,000. What $2,000 going to bring you anyway? You know, some people think that way. We're saying if the transaction is permissible and halal and no la ghubara alayh, and there is no doubt in it, there is no problem. But the ulama talk about it's makruh because of the warning. Like one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, من أخذ أموال الناس ينوي سدادها سد الله عنه ومن أخذ أموال الناس ينوي إتلافها أتلفه الله. So they said this is a warning for someone who borrows money. Someone who borrows money. This is a warning. So it's better to avoid it. That's why they made it, and some of the ulama said it's makruh. But in general, it's mubah. Why? Because of the dalil. Because of the Prophet ﷺ borrowing money. Alright? It's mubah.
Is it makruh probably because if the person dies, then he's going to be mu'allaq pending?
That is one of the things too. In general, it's the warning and wa'id of the person who borrows money if he doesn't pay it back. And one of the things, as the brother said, that when a person dies, he's on hold until his debt is paid off. And his debt should be paid from what he leaves behind before it's distributed. Okay? So it's very important to avoid that as much as you can, especially if you don't need it. But in general, it's permissible. It's mubah. Permissible. Now, talking about arkan al-qard, when we talk about this, al-qard, lending and borrowing, is a contract. Okay? It's a contract. So it has arkan. There are fundamentals and there's major parts of this contract. Pillars, if I could say, of this contract. One of them is al-muqrid, the lender, and muqtarid, the borrower. Okay? muqtarad, what is being borrowed, the money, the car, the service, as we will talk about. You can also borrow service, all right? Because a lot of people think lending, borrowing is only money. We're going to talk about the opinions of the ulama about other things like services. And also, صيغة, the format of the contract. You say, I lend you this money for 6 months. You say, I accept. That is صيغة. Okay? Whatever you write, the contract that is written, that is صيغة. Now someone might ask, should we write down the contract? It's the sunnah. It's recommended. It's not wajib to write when you lend someone and get witnesses on it. Okay? إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل فاكتبوه. Okay? When you borrow something for a certain amount of time, write it. Okay? And then after that Allah talks about shuhud. Alright? وَاسْتَشْهِدُوا شَهِيدَيْنِ. So, it's the sunnah to protect the rights. That is one of the goals and one of the purposes of the Sharia. To protect the wealth of the Muslim. Okay? That is one of the main purposes of the Sharia. Protect his wealth, like protecting his blood, protecting his honor, protecting his aql. All these things, matalib Sharia. So, if writing down a debt or a loan will protect my rights, just in case, a lot of the brothers and a lot of the Muslims feel offended. Okay? Even if you're going to borrow $100, write it. Because you don't know what later on it's going to create. How many people, they will lend you $100 and somehow they forget, or the same day they lend someone else, and then when it's time to pay, he tells you, I thought I lent you 200. Things happen. People forget. Okay? So write it down so you protect yourself and protect your brother. And you should not be offended when the brother that's doing you a favor asks you to write it down. You should never be offended. And this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this applies to every other transactions or contract if it's needed. Alright? So writing it is the sunnah, to write the loan and papers. Now, one of the issues that comes is this contract, aqd al-qard, the contract of debt or lending and borrowing. There are some kind of contracts called contract tabarru', okay, voluntarily, if I can use the word, donation, and some contracts called uqud mu'awada, meaning I get something in return. I get something in return. Yeah, I give you something and I get something. So which contract do you think it is? The voluntarily contract, which is completely with no return, or it's the contract with return?
The qard? The one with the
When we talk about qard, we're talking about qard al-hasan. We're talking about a qard that doesn't involve riba. We're talking about qard in Islam.
with return.
With the return? Why?
Because it's part of the intention to return it back.
Alright. But you're getting back exactly what you get.
You said you're going to go in details about that. Too sharp.
This guy's gonna share.
Yeah, but we know about al-qurud, and every Muslim knows that when you lend, you get back.
Same thing.
Yeah. So you go with the opinion that it's aqd mu'awada. That means you get something in return. Why? Because you're going to get exactly what you gave.
It doesn't have to be exactly what you're going to get.
In general, almost. So there is not really benefit for the lender.
Not in this.
Material.
Besides material. Because when we talk about return, we're talking about what the physical thing we're lending, muqrad. That is one way to look at it. That, you know what, I'm going to get it back. Okay? That means it's aqd mu'awada. It means I give and I get something in return, which is the same thing. The other people or the other group of ulama who looked and they said aqd tabarru', they said it's completely voluntary, completely